It's gonna be a bit annoying with this cable microphone, but
we don't have
we can make it work. We can make it work. So anyways, so we're with 5 people here on the panel that are either currently wearing a CGM or have done it before. So first of all, what I'm most curious about, so we have heard Alex's story, it was pretty cool. I want to hear from everybody else here, like what was your reason, guys, to start monitoring your glucose? Just be very brief. I'm gonna pass the mic around and we can start recording.
So the reason why I started using a glucose monitor was to better understand my energy levels, but then also type 2 diabetes does run in my family. My grandma has it, so I wanted to kind of see where I was at. I also have a terrible diet. I love sugar and I love carbs. So I wanted to see how much that was actually affecting just my energy, my sleep, my heart rate, all of that. And it was affecting it a lot.
Type 2 diabetes was also common in my family, but the reason I used CGM first was I had a zero carb diet for a year, and then I wanted to introduce carbs, and I wanted to see exactly what happens while I'm on zero carb and when I introduce carbs, and that was my experimentation. I used for a few months while I'm introducing carbs, trying different carbs, see what the results are, and basically another tool to experiment myself with.
I personally do CGMs for 2 reasons. One is to experiment with my individual responses to certain. Okay. I personally do CGMs for 2 reasons. One is to experiment with my individual responses to specific foods, to know my glucotype as well as possible. And second, every time when I want to recalibrate my diet. So.
Yeah, you guys know already why I get.
We know our secrets.
I just like to prick. I love pain.
It
doesn't hurt. Honestly, it doesn't hurt.
Sometimes it's you want to scratch it a bit for 2 minutes.
We can talk about pain in the next session. As for myself, actually the main reason was to understand and optimize my energy levels throughout the day. So I've realized on myself, I'm fairly productive in the morning and then I'm fairly productive late at night. But in the afternoon, like as soon as I have lunch, like my energy level dips and I have this foggy brain and it's like really difficult to do anything. Especially if it's a creative kind of task, like between 2 p.m. and maybe 5 p.m. So I was just really trying to figure out if it relates to what I eat and how I can optimize that to be better. But that brings us to the next question, I guess, which would be what has been your most interesting or maybe like most surprising finding out of all this?
I have 2 surprising facts. One is dehydration affects my blood sugar level a lot. I notice whenever I'm working out and I don't get enough water that my levels will be a lot higher that day, and it'll take me longer in order to get down to normal. And then drinking water will also, like a lot more water will help affect it. And then I think another thing was I did do a 72-hour water fast, and I had the glucose monitor on, and I dipped into the 40s, which is like fairly low, but I didn't notice any difference in my energy levels whenever my blood sugar levels were like extremely low. So that for me, I think has been like really interesting, those 2 things, how much dehydration has made a factor, and then how
Autophagy outside of your normal rates of recycling, where some are really high. Because if your ketones are really low and your blood sugar level is really low, there's no other way to produce energy than by self-consuming cells, right? But that shouldn't happen. Like that's not the normal pathway. Oh yeah, there is a third one, like the one without oxygen. But
Okay,
let's
move to a question over there first.
Yeah, for those of you who practice intermittent fasting, what have you found from your personal experience works and what doesn't work for maintaining optimal energy levels?
So for me, because I'm very fat adapted, intermittent fasting was like doing daily fat, like 24-hour fasting is very easy. And doing even prolonged fasting is very easy, and there's no glucose spikes throughout the day. It's fairly stable, it just moves. Like when I wake up, sometimes it dips a bit, and when I exercise, it's increases and dips. But aside from those things, it's fairly stable. There's no change, like no serious change throughout the day. Even on a prolonged fast, I don't get hungry, I don't feel anything. It's like, oh, life as normal. So, but when I introduce, I know when I introduce carbs to my diet, like a lot of carbs, I feel, I kind of now feel what the glucose crash is that shows in the glucose monitor. I know when it's in my body, I'm like, oh, I'm having a glucose crash right now. That's why I stopped using the monitor. And like I already kind of programmed that chart to my like biofeedback already. So, and I'm like, okay, this source of, I had too much glucose, or I didn't maintain the crash, or this source of food is bad for me. So that then I'd stop eating that, for example. That's been my experience.
I think with my experience, I've realized that eating carbs at like different points of the day definitely affect it. So I do 16 hours of not eating and then an 8-hour of like a feeding window. I do fasted workouts in the morning, and then I break my fast with bone broth every day. And then from the bone broth, I go into like vegetables. I try to eat carbs in the afternoon, and then I try not to eat carbs at night either. I also don't do caffeine at all. So having carbs at night just really affects how I feel the next day as well. Even if I stop eating carbs at like 6 p.m., then I'll be like sluggish the next day and not feel the best. So I try to like limit my carbs in like the early afternoon time frame, and that's like really helps with my energy levels at least.
And how do you sparse out your meals? Do you have a bunch of separate meals or like one or two big meals?
I have a bunch of separate meals. Yeah, so I'll do the bone broth, and then like an hour, hour and a half, then I'll have like another meal of like vegetables, an hour, hour and a half, then I'll like try to do this because I work from home, so it's easier for me just to have like snacks and then eat it that way. And then I try not to have a big meal at night, but normally 7 p.m. after 7 p.m. I stop eating. So
Is there any way to pull off like one big meal and avoid spikes, or is that just pretty unheard of?
I can't really speak to that, but I wouldn't assume. Like as soon as you have a meal, it takes, for me personally, it takes about an hour for the spike to happen. And then depending on what I've had or what I've had beforehand or what I've had after, depends on how long that'll stay in this like higher range, right? So I think having one meal might keep you a little bit higher. At least for me personally, I would feel that I would be maintaining a higher spike instead of just having a spike and then going back to normal.
For that last question, the biggest thing you can do if you want to is have no carbs in that one meal. The second biggest thing is work out before, and right after that have like protein, fat. Half an hour later have your carbs, and then immediately go for a walk for maybe half an hour. That would, and add an apple cider vinegar before it. So that would like and maybe fibrous foods, vegetables before, like while you're eating the protein. Like that would be the second best to get rid of the spike.
I wanted to get back to the intermittent fasting question because I did do some very consistent intermittent fasting, 18-6, about 7 or 8 years ago for 1.5 years. And what I found out was that I actually lost a lot of muscle mass. So that's, back then we didn't really know that much about intermittent fasting. It was just experimenting. I think today we know better than that. So that's just a word of warning that doing intermittent fasting, like we should definitely be careful about what's happening to our body, especially with losing muscle mass, which I believe is probably the worst that can be a side effect of.
How would you avoid
I actually
losing?
haven't lost any muscle. I've gained muscle doing intermittent fasting. But you were exercising as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know how accurate my scale is, but I have a scale, and maintaining muscle mass is extremely important to me. Even doing the 3-day water fast, I was really concerned that I was gonna lose a lot of muscle mass, and it wasn't a significant amount. And with intermittent fasting, and I do fasted workouts in the morning, I'm still able to maintain and grow a little bit of my muscle mass. So it is, I think, an individual process, yeah, so.
Also, I'm right now doing an experiment about that. Before I did a low calorie, like extreme diet, like fat loss diet, and see what happens. I lost muscle mass, and now this quarter I'm experimenting. I had a DEXA scan before. I'm gonna have a DEXA scan later. I'm trying to do like 2 to 3 days of fasting a week for the whole quarter. And at the end, I'm gonna get a DEXA scan and see did I lose muscle? Did I gain it? Is it the same? What's happening? So there's different opinions on the science. Like there's science saying both. So like you gain muscle during prolonged fasting, or you lose muscle. There's like both of those stuff. I don't know what to believe. I don't believe any of them. I'm gonna do my experiment and see. And if you guys hit me up, I'll share the results. And
We had one question there first. Sorry.
okay, sorry.
Coming well in this question about the autophagy, we was talked about the autophagy, right? So, do you guys have experience with spermidine? Because one of the mechanisms of spermidine is actually blocking the blockator of autophagy that is active while you are eating, and the inhibitor of autophagy is turning off as you are stopping.
Can you use that word again? What is it?
Spermidine.
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 The supplement.
Yeah.
Like sperm.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things that people supplement for that's for the longevity, and so it's on my list. These and a few other things. I haven't. I think if people did not hear this name, then they probably didn't use it because you can't really forget it. It's very suggestive. So yeah, it's a, as far as I know, it's a supplement. It's on my list to experiment with. Realistically, that's probably gonna happen sometime later this year. For me personally, I don't know if anybody else in the room already experimented.
Anybody else spermidine?
Yes. But I don't think we have any data from humans yet for spermidine, so I don't think it's very high on the supplements list of the things that we should be trying now. It's just,
But it's a very interesting mechanism, and
oh, for sure.
yeah, and it's like you can find it in wheat sprouts and wheat sperms.
Okay, closest question.
Going back to diets, I lived 3 years in Japan where it is very common to do omelette, 1 meal a day. And actually I have done it whenever I can control my eating, I actually do lunch, just lunch. So, and I didn't feel anything about losing muscles or any of that, it was just normal. I conditioned myself just to have 1 meal a day. And again, many people do that in Japan and they call it openly OMAD and everybody understands. So, have you tried OMAD? Any feedback on that or anyone else?
I did OMAD for a couple years, and especially Japanese culture, I understand it perfectly. So they usually have Japanese barbecue, all you can eat everywhere. And when I'm living to some place like that, I actually do like OMAD. Sometimes 2 or 3 days I don't eat, just because the next day so I can binge and go there like get my money's worth. Like pay $70 and eat 3 days worth of meal. So it's very efficient. I think that might be one of the reasons they did. I don't know, but I did OMAD for a long time, and regardless if I like use carbs or don't use carbs, it gives me so much time. So I just work all throughout the day. There's no coffee break, there's no lunch, there's no breakfast. I wake up, I do my morning routine, I just start working until like I work straight 10 hours straight. I don't have to do anything except get water. And after a while I can just like start my workouts and eat after it. So it's very convenient for life. And it also gives like a lot of mental clarity, like Mikhail mentions, I have lunch and I feel crashy or sluggish or something. You don't have that. You just go continue and work all day. So I like the productivity boost it gives more than anything. Like like all the whatever health benefits it says, the productivity boost is amazing by itself. And does that answer your question?
Anyone else has any other comments on OMA?
I'm just curious, how long before bed do you eat that one meal?
I find that if I eat it earlier, it's better, but it's also more inconvenient. So I think for me, like the sweet spot is around 6 to 8 p.m. But if I eat it earlier, like 12 to 14, I think like my sleep is actually better. But it's also breaking my day into two. So I have to stop working and then get to working again. But if I eat it later, I'm already done working. I do my workout, I do my eating, then try winding down.
Another question there.
Have any of you experimented with metformin or berberine and the effects on your blood glucose?
We have a couple of boxes of metformin right here, so we will talk about the trial just in 10 minutes, but I haven't done it yet. I was saving it for coming here, but if you want to experiment with metformin and CGMs, then now is your time.
One thing to note, if you experiment with that, don't eat. When you
Experiment with drugs, remember to read what they interact with. So if you're having grapefruit, right, don't have that formula. If you're having metformin, just avoid eating grapefruit or grapefruit containing products. Remember the interactions. That's important not just for drugs, also vitamins. Certain vitamins, certain minerals interact with each other. For example, vitamin D3, the one we love, if you take a whole lot of it and you don't supplement with K2, it becomes nasty. Of course, you have to take it also. For example, in my case, right, things like iron just don't absorb at all if I don't supplement with things like other metals or vitamin C. That literally doesn't absorb at all because I took supplementation for a while and it just didn't affect my blood level. It has nothing. And then I started combining and it totally changed my body's reaction to it.
This is completely off topic, but I do just want to reiterate how different this is for every single person. So my brother also wears a glucose monitor, and him and I will eat the same meals, and then we'll check in with each other to see like how different our spikes are. And something will spike me up to 200, and he's totally fine. And then something else, he'll get like a crazy spike, and I'm totally fine with it. So I just want to like reiterate, as we're up here like discussing what works well for us, just please keep in mind that like your experience could be totally different, and that's okay. Like this is
That's why you
completely
should use CGM.
exactly like this is individualized for you, so that you can figure out what's specific to you. So just gonna put that.
CGM with exclusion diet, best way to figure out things. Start with what's common and then add personalization.
Have we got any more questions? Yes.
Follow-up question on that. If something works for you and doesn't for another, like how do we know that it's not randomness if it moves in the opposite direction? That it's just not noise we're observing.
Report it. That's called statistics.
So
Enough people do this.
the best way to know like if it's random noise or not is making like a stable diet, stable lifestyle, and experimenting on that. So when I'm testing something, like I'm testing honey A and see how it spikes the glucose, it spikes significantly. And then I try honey B, and then I try honey A again. Is it gonna do that again? Can I reproduce these results? And after you try a few times, you can say, and you see it consistently, you can be sure. But if it's happening one time, I don't think that's enough data, because you might be stressed, you might be sleepy, you might have like all other variables that we don't even know, we don't even consider. So I think reproducibility is the key there.
May I suggest something before we all move to the next phase of today? Is that we're all going to live here. Some of you will get these, and we're going to experiment with things. May I suggest if you see anything weird, like outliers, confirm, and then please come back to the group, report it to us. If we find something peculiar, we might not want to try it ourselves, right? Like if you come to us and say, hey, this peanut butter is really weird, right? It drops my glucose to zero. Like, okay, let me try it. Does it do the same for me? Right, that's an example. Yeah, so if you find any weirdness that's an outlier, please let us know. The best way is to come together and see if this is a reproducible result. Maybe you'll find something novel.
We've got time for one more question before we move on to the experiment.
Last question, anyone?
Last chance.
Mark, do you have a question?
Mark asked if he can participate earlier today.
Can he?
I think-
What is the age recommendation for this?
As far as I know, they're okay for kids. Kids also have diabetes sometimes, and I'm pretty sure they are.
I think it should be fine, yeah.
Yay!
I saw the instruction where you apply it, that for even for babies, they allow you to apply it for babies, like to put it on their butt. It's much easier. Yeah.
So Mark will be the chief science officer of
No,
this
I'm
experiment.
not.
If you have any
For the
questions, then
last
ask Mark.
time. Stop saying that I'm not. I never
That's
signed
it,
up.
participate.
Okay, apologies, this was a scam, but the rest of this talk wasn't a scam. So, anyways, let's move on to the experiment. Hope you enjoy this panel. So I'm gonna repeat some of what Alex said earlier. We have got about, what is it, like 25, I think at least, CGMs here. Our main goal of these talks is to get as many people as we can into self-experimentation. So hopefully you've downloaded some knowledge from us, but as we said, a lot of this is very individual. So if you don't wanna play for yourself, we recommend it. There is a cost associated with the CGM, of course, so it's $80. It's gonna last you for 2 weeks. So you're gonna get, I think it measures the data point every 10 minutes, something like that, right? So you're gonna get very granular data over the 2-week period.
Even more often, because this is third
This is
session, right?
this may be every 5 minutes.
Oh,
yeah.
you did the third one?
This is
Yes,
the
three.
second one.
Okay, that's better than what I have. It's probably better.
Wait, number
About every 5 minutes, let's say. So it's very granular data. So the best way to do it, and you can give us feedback on this, but we would love to get synchronized. So we start today, and as Alex said, we have 2 weeks. So we think it will be good if for the first week we do like a semi-synchronized diet, which will be based on the blueprint, not blueprint. What is it called? Bulletproof. Sorry, bulletproof, which is it's not a zero carb, but it's a low carb diet. Alex has already done the work to identify some items from the restaurants here and from the supermarket that are very compliant to make it easy for you to follow it. So we would suggest you do that for the first week. I think Alex has got some fasting options, which is like a sub option. So if you want to go more extreme, you can follow the bulletproof, and you can also do some fasting, including that. But as an opt-in, then we would reconvene in 1 week. We can do maybe at the same time. We could compare our findings. Maybe we can do like a, I don't know, fire pitch style session. It'll be fun, like everybody does like a 1-minute presentation of the results, and then we can really compare and we can see how different or how similar it is. I think it'll be real fun. And then you still will have 1 more week to go, and during this 1 week, we think it would be cool if we give you just a free hand. So you can just go crazy, you can take metformin, we will provide it if you want, and you can see what it does for you. You can like carb load, you can eat like a whole liter of ice cream, and you can see what it does for you. Or you can do a different thing every day. That's the beauty of the CGM, like it responds in real time, so you can really use those 7 days to experiment with like almost 7 different diets, or if you want, you can just continue on the healthy low carb diet for the 2nd week as well if you liked it, but that will be up to you. So that's our suggestion. Any feedback on this? Like who is interested? Show of hands. Like who wants to do this?
I want to do this.
Mine wants to do this. Yes. So we've got a few. Any feedback on what I just said? Like does this sound good? Anything you would improve in this experiment?
I can add something to it. I'm breastfeeding, so that might also give some insight into what's going on with blood.
There will be good data points there. Yeah.
You're breastfeeding?
I've got it in the toy.
I do want to add one. I haven't used this. I use the Dexcom, but sometimes when I'm sleeping, if I sleep on the monitor, it'll actually give me a weird result. So just something to be like aware of at night. If you have like this weird spike for a little bit, it might actually be that you're laying on the monitor and it's going to give you a weird result. So just like be aware of that. I noticed that it would drop into the 20s. And I was like, oh my God, am I dying? Like, what's happening? But then, like, I would move around and then it would be normal. So, yeah.
Do you have covers for the monitors?
I do. I need to check how many.
Nice
We do have covers. I'm not wearing it right now, but I think we have enough for everybody. Yeah.
Yay!
It sometimes it comes off, so for me it lasts like maybe 4 days, and then I need to recover it. 10 days, but yeah, you can do Band-Aids as well.
Yeah, you use a Band-Aid and just put it, I had one of mine coming off and I just put a Band-Aid over it and it worked just fine and the sensor still worked as well.
And also it's waterproof, so you can shower, you can swim. I took it once scuba diving. I went like 20 meters deep for half an hour and it was still fine, which was amazing. So, yeah.
You can cold plunge with it. And definitely you'll get different results. But
Yeah, mine's been in sauna, mine's been in the snow. Yeah, no issues.
Yes.
Yeah, so aside from everyone learning about themselves individually, are there any hypotheses that you want to test as a group during this experiment?
That is a good point.
That is an excellent question.
And a good point.
Anything you recommend?
I just say that.
I think it's we might have different hypotheses. We want to test individual and as a group. I'll say what I'm personally curious to find out. First of all, I would be curious to see how quickly people who maybe were not on a low carb diet, if they start one, how quickly the fasting sugar level drops, right? So that chart there, if you notice, it never went below 190, went to 100 for me. Before I went into low carb, which is elevated, considered elevated. And for me, it took a while to get there, but I was not perfectly following the diet. I'm curious to see the average, how it takes for the people here with this diet, which will not be perfect. Second one is outliers. We heard about people having different experience. I really want to just data mine that and see if your outliers are my outliers or the other way around. Third, I also want to see how difficult it will be, right, to have this kind of diet when we are bombarded with stuff that's not really compatible with it, even in practice.
I would also like try to do like gather 3 friends and have fasted, go to breakfast, have the exact same breakfast, and see what happens. Like, what's your starting point? What like little experiments like that. We could learn a lot and see. It's interesting info.
I have something that I would like to know for myself. If anyone is going to have the monitor try like some sort of caffeine, just fast it to see the spike. And if anyone knows their mutant, their gene of the caffeine metabolism, it would be really interesting for me to see if the fast metabolizers and slow metabolizers have different kind of a spike just based on the cortisol stress spike from the caffeine itself. So one caffeine on
I've been caffeine free for 8 years.
Yes. Quick quote about that. Is there a significant difference between just drinking straight like coffee or even bulletproof coffee and drinking like a yerba latte can that has like 10-ish grams of sugar, like in terms of the spike?
If you are sugar, it's very different, very different. So when I drink bulletproof coffee, I would get into a slight high, like a ketone high, faster than if I'm not on coffee. If I take sugared coffee, I don't even get the coffee energy boost. Because after 20 minutes after that, my sugar drops and I'm jittery and I want another coffee. But it's very, very different. That's the reason why I don't add sugar to coffee anymore. That's the reason why I actually don't add milk to sugar anymore, because the small amount of carbs in milk, if I'm in a fasted state, I saw that that is enough, to bring my sugar level high enough to carb down on ketosis. Like that's something I observed. On an empty stomach, bulletproof coffee does more or less what's expected to do. If I add even something as simple as milk, it's not as efficient.
I'm interested by the way the caffeine without coffee without anything, just 0 calories.
And it works not just with coffee. I saw it working with tea as well. Like green tea, black tea, same thing.
And also go into, if anybody is willing to do maybe like a week with me doing like the similar activities in the morning, eating the same thing, I think that it'd be really interesting to get just like 3 or 4 of us that are kind of doing the same thing and seeing how it affects like our water intake and everything, and how like spikes are different between the people. But it would take a lot of effort. So just heads up, if you do agree, then let me know.
What are you doing in the morning?
It's nothing too crazy. I do normally like hit workouts and then like lifting workouts, but I'd be willing to change like so that all of us are doing like an agreed upon workout where we would all do the same workouts in the morning together and then like drink water, just so we can keep it as consistent as possible as far as like when we're eating and things like that. I think that'd be super interesting to see the difference.
What is the ultimate goal with blood glucose levels? Too high is obviously bad, so we want to prevent spikes. Too low, we also don't want that. But if we could perfectly control our blood glucose levels, what would we want over time, over 24 hours a day?
As low as you can get it, without any side effects. Like that's kind of the golden rule. As low as you can get it and keep it there while being really energetic, like that would be the golden standard. For most people, that's around 70 something, yeah.
Is it 70 low or low?
There's like a graph, the line. You want the area under the line to be as small as possible, and you want the spikes to be as low as possible. And once you got the spike, you want them to come down fast. Personally, I don't like the one that I feel is the crashes, which it goes under. So this is the baseline. It goes up, it goes down the baseline. This is where I feel sleepy. This is where I feel tired. So I don't want to get there. That would be like understanding what causes those crashes. Like personally for me would be the #1 goal, and try to avoid them. Then prevent the spikes and then keep it as low as possible.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add disclaimer, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I like to keep mine between 70 and 90 is what my baseline is, and then my spikes I like to keep them below 130. Ideally in the 120s is whenever I notice my spikes. Sometimes if I like have a sweet potato that's baked too long, it'll spike me into the 200s. And then I'll crash down into the 70s, and then I'll like even out back into the 90s. So there's like some things that are like significant difference in spikes, but you don't want to have like crazy spikes, just keeping it around that level. And this is for people that are not diabetic and not pre-diabetic, as far as some of the research that I've done. So you want to keep it below 140 with your spikes, but between like 70 and 100 is going to be like the healthy range. But I like to keep mine, yeah, around like 75.
And any other suggestions on what hypothesis people want to make for this experiment, or what we should be testing as a group? Okay.
Just like all of us are like very biased now, so like we have to deal with you also the people just have no clue. You're like, hey, you're my body and eat the same thing as me, but like you don't know anything about it, right? So it's like, yeah. So that is also a thing to consider. We are biased by the knowledge that we have about this, right? It's going to affect the results somewhat. Yeah.
Some things that I do when I set up experiments for myself is to decide when I'm looking at the data and when I'm not looking at the data. So, for example, if you decided to do normal 1 week, like don't look at the charts for a week. I wonder if you see any value in doing that. Perhaps you could like have a log of how you feel. You mentioned that in your talk that you have this app that asks you how do I feel, and then you say I feel moody, I feel angry. Like if you do that without knowing what your glucose is, then I think when you analyze the data, you can get more interesting results because you didn't fool yourself and say, oh, I was spiked, therefore I was bad, because you all talked today about how bad spiking is. So perhaps if you, like, do you see any value in not looking at the graph every day?
I do something similar whenever I have the app that shows up on my phone, and I'll be like, oh, I feel really sluggish right now, or I feel kind of weird, and then I'll check my glucose level and it's totally normal. And I'm like, okay, well, this had nothing to do with it. Or sometimes I'll see, like, I'll check that I'm a spike, and I'm like, well, I feel totally normal and I don't notice anything. So for me, like, the energy level, I haven't noticed too much between when I'm spiking and when I'm in like a lower, and then whenever I'm consistent based off of like how I'm feeling. So, which is completely different than what a lot of people on the channel have had. So,
Maybe what we could do is have some kind of a journal as well, let's say, so not looking at the graphs all the time, but like noting down when you're really feeling down, or when you slept wrong, or when something you're so distressed. So to mark that and then overlap it with the data.
yeah, I'd be curious to see.
I actually do that whenever I do like a daily experiment. If I'm going to try something, I write the timeline. Like I have a time log, so it's like 8:00 I woke up. 8:10 I looked at my blood glucose, looked normal. 8:20 had honey. 8:30 the glucose spike, there's no glucose spike. 8:40, so I kind of time log everything, and any sensation I'm feeling, I'm like during that 1 2 hour, I'm like hyper focusing on my body and my what's happening, and log that, and that's how I get the best insights when I log this, and then I delete the logs. Well, I don't delete it, I archive them, but then at the end of the day, I kind of compile. Okay, this is what I learned today from this experiment.
Should we set up people with Paleo or Parable to do this, or you just do this on paper?
I think for short-term papers better. Variable, you need like at least a month of data to get good insights out of it.
So should we suggest people just keep paper or Google Doc diaries, and they
Yeah.
just log like whatever is a significant sensation they're feeling in their body?
Yeah, they could use, I would suggest doing like chronometer, which tracks the diet, like what you eat, or alternatively MyFitnessPal. So basically, like everything you eat, track it, and when you eat it, track it as well. When you start, when you finish, and you could also in the app of like Libre, you could put I believe you could put logs and notes there as well. You can put like emoji of food, and I have dinner, I have a snack. You could do that stuff as well. Like collect as many data points as possible to just to understand what's happening, because at some point you're not
going to remember.
Yeah,
It's extremely important that you log everything,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're not going to get any data of your experiment.
Yeah, like 5 days later, you kind of think, oh wait, I think I feel a pattern forming here. Then you go back, oh, you don't have the data, you can't prove the pattern. So that happened a lot. So
Unfortunately, Freestyle Libre app is not the best, to say at least. But
it's the worst.
but it does let you log your food and other events. What I do sometimes is I just take pictures if I'm too lazy to actually write it down, because then at least you can go back and see the date, see the time, and you can correlate with the spikes or whatever you're measuring. So that's the tip.
So shall we standardize this? Everybody.
Is the apps free? The one you recommend?
yes,
Both of them?
yes.
Yeah, I use my phone as well.
Okay, let's do the one that's more comprehensive and has better data export capability, so we can.
Which one is
Merge
similar?
data.
MyFitnessPal has pretty good data export.
Yeah, MyFitnessPal is pretty good.
Does it export data?
It can export all the data pretty
I
easily.
like the details chronometer goes into which kind of glucose you're eating, which kind of what kind of sugar from what kind of food. It gives you a bit more.
Do you still scan barcodes? Like of what you're
You
eating?
can, but I I don't need anything that has barcodes.
Okay, well, my cocoa powder's out.
Okay, shall we go with chronometer then?
I would suggest chronometer, but if people are used to MyFitnessPal and using that,
Who is using MyFitnessPal? Let's see. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, who's using chronometer?
Just me.
Chronometer.
It's a diet tracking app.
Okay, we recommend using chronometer. If you're a huge fan of MyFitnessPal, you can continue using that. The important thing is, please track everything you're eating as much as you can. It does take a little bit of work, but as long as you do it right when you're eating a meal, it's very easy. If you try to do it like at the end of the day, it becomes very difficult. You're not gonna remember. It's very hard. And then the second thing, just self-observe whatever you're feeling in your body, and if you have any special sensation, if you feel tired, if you're happy, whatever, just log it in. I think before you're looking at the graph, just log it in, and then later we can correlate it with the data. Yes.
So if you've been using Freestyle Libre 2, and you want to use Freestyle Libre 3, do you need a different app on your phone?
Yeah, there's a different app, unfortunately.
But that's about it. Like, it's just a different type. Everything else is kind of similar.
So, yes. Okay, last question.
I would love to do like kind of a version of a milkshake study. If anyone is familiar with the milkshake study.
Tell us more about it.
Milkshake study. Okay. So this is a mindset study basically. I don't want us now tell what's behind the study because again it would be biased. But is anyone open to drink milkshake? And that's basically.
For how long and what?
No, I just need to make a milkshake.
Yeah, what's in the, is there
Is
milk in
there
there? What kind of milk?
Yeah. One group is going to have like a very luxurious, full fat, full sugar milkshake, the royal milkshake, around 600 calories. Another group is going to have around 180 calories, very slim, no sugar, just like protein, stevia, sweetened milkshake. Or artificial.
Can we have the full fat, no sugar version?
Sorry, no. So anyone open to that? It would be perfect. Come to me and we'll set it up.
So what I would propose
is let's create a spreadsheet with people who participate in our CGM study, propose your experiments, and make sure to designate yourself as a leader for the experiment. You're going to be responsible for coming with results. That's one. Two, make sure you provide some context so people can decide if an experiment is interesting for them. And three, let's have a place where people can sign up or show interest. So the way it will work, I propose it to this. People who absolutely want to participate in the experiment, please sign up. People who think, oh, this experiment is cool, but I'm not convinced, get into the wait list. So what I propose is, after we have a list of these experiments, we'll look how many people signed up to each, and then decide. So we have a good representation in each experiment that we want to conclude, but also we're not going to have everybody, doing one and then nobody doing the other one. We're having the same person do two experiments at the same time, the same group doing two different experiments, but then it might have noise from one to another. Like, we want to coordinate this as a group. That's what I propose.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay, guys, we are almost at 6 o'clock.
I have
So yes, Mark. Okay.
Quick one, last one.
Comment for the milkshake question. Why milkshakes out of all things? Why milkshakes?
It is a milkshake study. Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
Somebody wants to sign up to the.
Okay. So we will have time for more people to come up with more studies after we begin, because the first week will be the synchronized diet to get everybody's baseline. So during that week, anybody can come up with more studies, then people can then implement the second week. So that should be fine. Now about logistics. So there are some people that are interested and have left already. So I suggest we do this. Whoever is ready to sign up right now and can pay, we have good crypto payment methods or USD payment methods, then you can receive the CGM right away from me. You can take it home. If you're not ready because you need to figure out how to pay, you need to think about it, you want to get time to shop for groceries, whatever. You will have all of tomorrow as well to find me at the beach club to pay and get a CGM from me. And then all of us, we start together in, I think, 24 hours time, so tomorrow night. Which direction do you want?
Yes.
Can I join?
First come, first serve.
First come, first serve as well. So if you're ready to sign up now, then you do it now.
Mark, get the payment ready.
One last thing, it does not hurt, but to like psych yourself up to actually like put it on is like the biggest part that it for me. Like it doesn't actually hurt, but like the first time I did it was like, oh god, like I'm super scared of needles, and it was fine. So just for anybody else, if you're like worried about the needle part, like it's very minimal, it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt, but just be warned. The last time I did it, I did start bleeding quite a bit, and it was a surprise to everyone involved. And I was in the middle of telling somebody it didn't hurt, and then it was just bleeding.
Outlier, that was an outlier.
It was an outlier, yeah. Not to scare anyone, but I just want you to know that it still wasn't hurting. It was just
so much
bleeding.
more confident now.
I totally feel okay.
I was literally in the moment of like, don't worry, it doesn't hurt. So it was like, you're bleeding. So, okay, I can take my phone down.